Hi, now I will name a few names, and you will somehow feel whether you will respond to them or not. So, Toy Story, The Adventures of Ant Flick, Monster Corporation, The Incredibles, and Cars. Is it so? Well, if there is, then you've watched these cartoons the same way I have. And if not, then damn it, take the kids, well, or yourself, and be sure to watch these cartoons. So, we're going to talk about book number 13, The Magic of Pixar. By the way, Pixar had a hand in creating these cartoons. They just revolutionized the world of graphics, and if it weren't for them, we probably would have continued to watch hand-drawn cartoons, which in principle is also a good thing. So, this is a very difficult book, simply because it is historical. This company is now worth many billions of dollars, but of course it was not done in vain. I have prepared 7 conclusions for you, and now we will move on to them. But I want to encourage you, and if you're at a stage where something is really bad, everything is falling apart, and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel, you think everything is bad, then don't worry, even this company that Steve Jobs bought out was doing very well. This company has been unprofitable for 15 years, meaning it hasn't actually made any money at all. But it has brought in expenses every year. Everything was really bad, and then, bam, and Toy Story, and people just started going crazy. So, I'm sharing with you the conclusions that I made for myself, and now we're going to delve into them because some of them are deep and some are so-so. The first conclusion. Oh, these accidents and coincidences. An example with a combination of people in a team. What does it mean? In the minds of startups, and indeed businessmen, there is an opinion that you need to assemble the perfect team, only professionals, stars, and then everything will coincide so that you will create a unique business. The Pixar story shows that this is not the case. Everything was a little different. It's a creepy, I would say, even some kind of strange coincidence. All the key players who created Pixar were completely different from each other. They were in completely different places. In other words, you should not limit yourself to finding a person or partner who is located in your city. No, you shouldn't. This is a true story about coincidences. Thus, the ideal team was formed completely by chance. It's a wild coincidence, and you need to keep that in mind. Therefore, do not rush to refuse those people who are in another city. Perhaps they will become your ideal partners. Point number 2. Refusing to work out of conscience, or when you want to do the wrong thing. It so happened that there were 3 founders, not exactly equal, but founders, and each of them went through pain. That is, they didn't do anything wrong. No one in the early 70s believed in 3D graphics. That is, in principle, there was no such niche. There were special effects, but cartoons, 3D graphics definitely did not exist. For example, one of the company's founders loved cartoons so much that he once watched Looney Tunes, Rabbit Bugs Bunny, until 11th grade. Just think, one day he was so embarrassed to go to cartoons that he asked his mom to meet him after a movie show so that she would take him home so that no one would notice him from the cartoon. And the guy was already 18 years old. So, if you have some kind of passion and you're a little shy about it, then damn it. Here's a living example for you. If you love something fantastically and fanatically, then do it. You're a fanatical fan of TV series. Well, look, I understand the inconsistency of this advice, but if something comes out of it, and not just to kill time, then look. Maybe you'll make the next series cool. These guys, who started drawing 3D cartoons, were naturally engaged in an unloved job. They had to do it. If you're in this state right now, know that it's just your way, and there's no way around it. Alas, you just have to go through with it. Point number 3. The dream job quickly ceased to be a dream. At the wrong time and in the wrong place. One person from this team managed to work at Disney. He really wanted to get a job there. But when he came and said, "Guys, there's going to be a 3D animation here," they told him, "No, dude, you definitely can't expect any 3D animation." They twisted his head and told him to do this. That is, the mechanical functionality. And it burned down quickly. So if you really want to work at Google, Snapchat, Facebook, then know that this imagination paints the perfect picture of the world. You can get a job at Facebook and do something wrong. Not at all. So don't build illusions, and remember that what you are doing is just a process. It's just a path, and you need to leave this path if it doesn't suit you. Point number 4. Now there will be more practical information. The bidding strategy for the purchase of Pixar. Jobs offered $5 million, while they asked for 15. Lucasfilm kept Pixar just as an outsourced special effects production company, and they wanted and planned to sell this company to Jobs for $15 million. One of Lucasfilm's key employees, George Lucas, who was involved in the creation of Star Wars, spoke to Steve Jobs and offered him to buy this small team. And then, when the rest of the company started rejecting the $15 million acquisition within a year, what did Steve Jobs do? Steve Jobs was watching the action. He seemed to be peeking around the corner and wasn't taking any active action. So if you want to buy something, you don't have to be intrusive. You don't have to remind me that give me a discount. Give me a discount. No. He looked around, saw how the competitors were behaving regarding the purchase. And when all the competitors joined forces, he said, "I want you to give me a discount." He appeared and said, 5. How much is 5? $5 million. That is, he saved 10 on these costs in just 1 year. Like this. So, what is the conclusion? Take your time. If you really want to buy something, take your time, or better yet, don't do it. Be patient, see how your competitors behave, and only then buy. But, of course, there is a downside. If you pull too hard, then most likely someone else will take advantage of this opportunity. Point 5. The Distortion Field by Steve Jobs. It was a real discovery for me. I've already read Steve Jobs' book, and it wasn't the biggest one. There is just a super huge book, almost the Bible of Steve Jobs, but I read the abridged version, and such a perfect picture appeared in my imagination. I imagined Steve Jobs to be almost the god of business. I imagined him to be a super perfect entrepreneur who does everything and succeeds. Of course, we know the story of how he was fired from his own company, Apple. But it seemed that a dark period had come and everything would get better. Steve Jobs is not a fortune teller. Steve Jobs is not Superman. The effect of luck has worked here, and now I'm going to prove it to you. Well, at least that's how it's described in the book. What happened? In fact, when Steve Jobs bought Pixar, he expected the Pixar team to sell computers. Computers for processing visual images, that is, for working with graphics. Very expensive computers. He firmly believed in it. Simply, he was fired from Apple. He started working at Next, another computer manufacturing company. And then, unfortunately, Pixar would also sell computers. But no one refused these computers. At first, they were sold to educational institutions, but due to the fact that they were very expensive, they did not have a full price. They had to buy something, and very quickly the demand for these computers fell to a minimum. Secondly, then Steve Jobs really believed the story that Pixar could sell a special program that would allow ordinary users to print 3D images on a printer. That is, he believed in it so strongly that he convinced everyone. And Steve Jobs had a superpower. There was definitely a superpower here. If he talked to someone, he would make that person believe in his idea. He owned Kung Fu, only mentally. He owned hypnosis, anything. In general, people have repeatedly written that during the meeting everyone believed in the impossible. And as soon as the meeting ended, the thoughts were as follows. No, it won't work. This is the distortion field of Steve Jobs. And this conclusion leads to the fact that he is the same person as us, and he was mistaken. He repeatedly tried to sell Pixar, repeatedly, for 8 years. This company under the leadership of Steve Jobs was unprofitable. Even in 1 year, her debt was about $9 million. And it was a lot of money. So remember that even such a super mega hero makes mistakes in terms of entrepreneurship. And why didn't he sell this company? The most important question. There was a moment when he was going to sign a contract, but something stopped him, something internal. And do you know what's inside it? It was an inner feeling that if he sold this company, he would feel like a loser. But that's how it was. Many people who talk to Steve Jobs say that he was very offended by the leadership of Apple. But it fired him, and accordingly, this resentment was bitter. Overnight, or rather in a short period of time, he became a legend of Silicon Valley. He became just a guru, and then they took him and fired him. They say that if he had suffered a second fiasco, he would not have survived it. He was a very emotional person. Point 6. Pick up what you like. The guys from Pixar decided to make money from advertising, studied the technology, took a starry picture, and declared themselves. It's a good story. Here's my friend. He really wants to make a movie. He has a global goal, and you can sit and wait for the weather by the sea, they say. One day I will find a suitable investor. I will interest him. He will sponsor my film, and I will finally shoot it. But no, he's not sitting, he's honing his skills, and Pixar decided to hone their skills too to make money. And let me remind you, computers didn't give up on anyone. They decided to sell 3D advertising for a lot of money. Then there was no such thing at all. And they started making money slowly, and not just making money. They began to hone their skills. That is, they tried to understand what they were capable of, and when they started earning, it allowed them to expand. This means that we need to attract more qualified people. Now, think about what you want to do. If you want to become the greatest seller in the world of real estate, then start by getting a job at some company that is located in your city, and start doing it at least simply and not waiting, because as a rule, those who are lucky are lucky. If you are not moving anywhere, then nothing is happening. Here, remember this. Point number 7. Last, the Toy Story script is a selection of films. If you are connected to each other for 48 hours, then you will live until midnight, and it will be dark. What's the point? This means that Toy Story is a whole drama. It's not just a cartoon for the sake of a cartoon for kids, because if it was some kind of silly cartoon, there would just be toys running around. But no, the scriptwriters drew inspiration from other cult films here. So, think about it. Movies are a cartoon. After all, this is a different age category. But they adapted this main plot in such a way that if you're looking for inspiration in art or business, just find what you like by choosing what you've singled out for yourself. Remember Toy Story? There was a Buzz Lightyear toy and a second Woody cowboy. For the first time, they had a conflict. It would seem a conflict for children. Why? Children need to be shown everything in a colorful way. But there was no drama, and only gradually, throughout the cartoon, they began to be friends. And then a happy ending. Study it, and most likely you will be surrounded by many interesting examples that you can examine under a magnifying glass. Highlight the most important elements, and then incorporate them into your life. That's it, the end. And I want you to leave a review. I'm very interested in reading whether my podcasts help you at all or not. Bye-bye.